Hello everyone, my name is Preston Dennett, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about my book, Not From Here, Volume 3, which covers the strange and unusual aspects of UFO contact, the kind you don't often hear about, that most investigators won't talk about, that don't fit the standard model of UFO contact. First chapter is called Caught in the Act. And this covers cases of people who have observed abductions. Almost never happens. The vast majority of abductions, hundreds of thousands of probably, do not have any outside observers. I found about 20 cases where people have observed abductions. It occurred in Brazil. Two young sons saw their father get abducted. It happened in Florida to Filiberto Cardenas. Happened to Martin Cohen in Leeds, England. It's happened all over the world. I've got a case in Arkansas, a case of a farmer in New Mexico, a lady in Hawaii, Ukraine, Australia, many other cases. Many pilots have been taken as well. Chapter 2 is called See a UFO, Lose Your Job, and this covers cases of people who have had severe discrimination as a result of a UFO encounter. Like Travis Walton, and his whole crew were basically lost their job as a result of their encounter. Another example is Leah Haley, an abductee from Alabama. Many police officers have suffered this sort of discrimination. Alan Godfrey of England saw a UFO, was ridiculed mercilessly, pressured by his superiors to resign. He refused, so they took away his police car and gave him a bicycle. He eventually resigned. Other police officers have been passed over for promotions. One police officer, Jeff Greenhaw, went public after photographing actually apparent ETs and received threats. His house was burnt down, his wife left him and he lost his job and was basically chased out of town. Look what happened to John Mack, a Pulitzer Prize winning author. Very nearly lost tenure in his job as a result of just investigating this subject. So it's definitely something to watch for and be careful of. Chapter 3 is called Alien Gifts. And this is something that almost never happens. People are given objects from a UFO as basically gifts. It nearly happened to Betty Hill. They gave her a book, but as she was leaving, they basically took it back. Betty Andreasen reports that she did receive a book and was able to keep it for up to 2 weeks and observe it at her own time. This has happened in a number of cases. William Herman of South Carolina was given a bar of metal. This happened to another gentleman investigated by researcher Constance Clear. He was also given a bar of metal. Both cases turned out to be, or the Herman case turned out to be terrestrial lead. The other bar was stolen by apparently men in black. But there are a number of cases like this. There was a case from Russia of a lady who was given a crystal. There was a painter in France who was given what appeared to be a telescope. Again, men in black took that one. This happens in a number of cases where the government shows up or some aspect of them and steals these objects back. But there's a surprising number of cases where people have actually been given gifts by the ETs. I tried to find any cases where people have been able to steal an object, and I couldn't find anyone who was successful. Antonio Villas-Boas, one of the first abductees, tried to steal one, and they basically took it back. And there's another case from J. Allen Hynek, another gentleman from the Midwest, tried to steal an object and was unsuccessful. Chapter 4 is called To Err is Alien, and asks the question, do aliens make mistakes? And yes, apparently they do. There's a lot of cases where people have been returned to the wrong position. There's the case of Patty Price in the Midwestern US in 1973, where the whole family was abducted and the kids were returned to different beds. Sandra Larson and her daughter Jackie and their friend Larry had an abduction in 1975 in North Dakota, and they were also put back in different seats in the car. I have a case like this myself, which I also included, involving a gentleman who was driving along the Central Highway on Interstate 5 and had an abduction experience, and again, they were returned to different seats. So this happens quite a bit. People have been actually locked out of their houses. This happened to Stan Romanek. Uh, Another case in England, Anne Andrews, the Andrews family, they had an abductee actually appear in their home, a complete stranger who was very quickly taken back by the ETs who had apparently made a mistake. So yeah, ETs do apparently make mistakes, but it's pretty darn rare. Chapter 5 is called Can We Contact UFOs with a Ouija board? And the surprising answer is yes. There's a number of cases. One case comes from Frank Salisbury in the Utah UFO display. Two children summoned a UFO using a Ouija board in February 1976, which appeared over the local Roosevelt Hospital. This happened to J.Z. Knight, most famous for channeling Ramtha. There are a number of cases like this. Remember the Gulf Breeze 6 in 1990, who used a Ouija board and contacted ETs and ended up going AWOL and going to Gulf Breeze, Florida, which was having a major UFO flap at that time. So yeah, that's a very strange aspect of UFO contact that a lot of people don't talk about, but I think points towards the complexity of this phenomena. Chapter 6 is called UFOs over prisons, and I've never heard anyone talking about this, but yes, prisons are targeted, I think because they're very powerful installations, and UFOs seem to be attracted to that. There's cases all over the world where this has happened. England, this has happened in Iowa, New York, Alabama. I've got cases all over the world. In Colorado, there's one prison that was targeted over and over again. Probably my favorite case is the Red Bluff case, which occurred in 1960, in which there was a huge wave of sightings, one right over the Red Bluff prison. And to get more witnesses, one of the guards actually marched out all the prisoners onto the roof of the prison so they could all see this UFO that was hovering overhead. So yeah, prisons and UFOs are definitely a thing. I did not find any cases in which prisoners have experienced an abduction, but given that there are a million people in jail or more, it's very likely that some of these people are abductees. Chapter 7 is called Is Jesus an Alien? And this covers a subject in which people have seen religious figures aboard UFOs. Again, this is statistically insignificant, almost never happens, but there's enough cases that warrant an analysis. And yeah, I mean, it happened to Howard Menger, it happened to Jose da Silva of Brazil, Donna Butts of Ohio had this experience. There's a case in Italy in which a gentleman was having religious apparitions along with UFO sightings. So yeah, sometimes these phenomena do come together. This has been written about pretty extensively by Jacques Vallée as well, but this covers actual cases in this book. Betty Andreasen, remember, she referred to her contacts as angels. Denise and Bert Twiggs, contactees from Oregon, actually said they flat out saw Jesus aboard a UFO. And yeah, there are other cases like this. Interestingly, throughout the Middle Ages and the Renaissance period, there are many, many paintings depicting Jesus and UFOs together. So yeah, something is clearly going on here. It's just difficult to say exactly what it is. Chapter 8 is called Is Bigfoot an Alien? And what is this connection between Bigfoot and UFOs? It's hard to say, but there's a lot of cases like this. Most UFO cases do not involve Bigfoot, and most Bigfoot cases do not involve UFOs, but a small smattering of cases do. This happened during a Pennsylvania outbreak in 1973 when a bunch of UFOs were seen in conjunction with Bigfoot. In 1974, Frederick Bozak of Wisconsin saw a UFO, looked through the porthole, and saw a Bigfoot-like creature. Don Worley, a very famous investigator, had a case like this in 1981 in Ohio, in which a family had a UFO hover over their house, and at that time they had a number of Bigfoot sightings. A lot of cases like this. There's a case in Brownsville, California, pretty recent, 2017, in which two people saw a UFO land in the forest, and this was followed almost immediately by a Bigfoot sighting. So yeah, this definitely does happen. It's hard to say exactly what it means, but I think it's a mistake to ignore these types of cases. Chapter 9 is called The Secret Behind Alien Anal Probes, an in-depth analysis. Because the media seems to have latched onto this particular aspect of the contact experience, and I decided, fine, let's just cover it. And I found surprisingly few cases in which people actually described this procedure. Instead, it just seems that the media is really obsessed with it. And if you look on advertising, you'll see it's true. I mean, there's alien anal probe hot sauce. You can get stickers and shirts with this phrase on it. For whatever reason, the public has seemed to latch onto this one particular aspect of the UFO contact experience, when really it's just one of many kinds of procedures that ETs perform on people, and seems to be a simple colonoscopy. And the last chapter, chapter 10, is called If You Build It. And this is probably my favorite chapter. This covers cases in which people were shown the engine room of a UFO, basically, and told how it works, and were inspired to build their own UFO engine. Not all cases have all these elements, but it's basically a collection of about a dozen cases in which people have been inspired by their encounter to build a free energy motor. This happened to a lady named Helen in 1968. This lady was investigated by Jacques Vallée, and this was her life mission. She had an encounter, an abduction, and after that became obsessed with building a motor. Something very, very similar happened to Whitley Strieber in 1958, and where he tried to build an alien motor. I've got a case from 1959. Virgil Atkinson had an encounter at the Coos Head Naval Facility in Oregon, which inspired him to start building magnetic motors. I've covered a case extensively in my book, Inside UFOs, involving a gentleman by the name of Jim Kubelbeck, who had an encounter in 1960 on the Mediterranean Sea, which inspired him to build a free energy motor. There's many cases like this. A farmer in 1985, Yvonne Smith has a case. John Long, 2002, started becoming obsessed with physics and building magnetic motors. So there's clearly something going on here. It looks like a grassroots movement on the part of the ETs to try and get this information out. There are other cases that are very similar. Stan Romanek, Charles James Hall, both started producing complex physics equations inspired by their encounters. Of course, there's the integratron, and a number of cases involving people who were told how to build UFO detectors. So that's basically this book in a nutshell. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope you get a chance to take a look at it. Bye for now.